Now call to order. Possibly for the last time, the business meeting of the BSA. Officers and other leaders will come to the stage to share their reports on our activities throughout the year. So this has been quite the year. This has been quite the year, and frankly, where we ended up was wonderful indeed. The most notable thing we undertook was facilitating the transition in leadership from the inaugural executive director, Erin McGurl, to the interim executive director, Martin Antonetti, Martin sends his regrets, and to the current executive director, Tracy Floriani. Tracy has proven that she was the right person for the job insofar as her transition into the role has been seamless. And one of her top priorities within days of receiving the offer was to book her tickets to join us in New York. But it took many people to help us get from there to here. Erin was a valuable guide behind the scenes. Executive committee, council, and the PBSA editors maintained good relationships throughout the process. And programs and administration manager Caitlin Kuchera was the engine. Yes. I don't know where Caitlin is. Caitlin was the engine that kept us running from an operations standpoint. Most of all, though, I wish to thank Martin, a former BSA president, for being a terrific interim leader, someone who jumped into the breach with vim and curiosity, and who steered the ship with a specific goal in mind. I thank Elizabeth Ott, for chairing the committee that ran a nationwide search for the position, facilitated a thorough review of applications, and conducted expert collaborative interviews with finalists last fall. You'll hear from Liz later about her other BSA duties, and all I can say is she deserves the lion's share of credit for setting both Tracy and the new leadership up for success this year. And the result is that we welcome Tracy as our executive director today. Tracy earned her PhD in English from the University of Kansas. She's a distinguished scholar of mid-century American literature and culture, with a particular focus on Ralph Ellison and his overlooked but artistically accomplished wife, Fanny Ellison. From 2021 to 2024, Tracy served as president of the Society for the Study of the Multi-Ethnic Literature of the United States. Most recently, she was Senior Program Officer of the Division of Research Programs at the National Endowment for the Humanities. Prior to that position, she was a professor of English and director of the Gene Hoffman Smith Center for Film and Literature at Oklahoma City University. Tracy's scholarly background, institutional experience, and strategic vision for the future of humanistic research make her the ideal leader for the BSA for years to come. Once again, welcome, Tracy. That's enough of that. So look, part of that vision, no doubt, will involve continuing initiatives and new partnerships. Last fall, the Peck Stackpole Foundation bestowed upon the BSA an endowed gift that will help fund our early career fellowships for the foreseeable future. Early career fellowships. And we have here a senior undergraduate at Stony Brook University who, this is his second time attending, both times without his advisor. So Aiden, thank you for coming. You are the future of the organization and of the library professions, and I want to really call out your commitment here, because that's what Peck Stackpole Foundation's fellowship is about, and I hope you'll continue to come back yearly and see us. Martin played a pivotal role in securing this award, and his proposal was backed by years of development by Erin and former President Barbara Shaler. Martin and Barbara also collaborated to create an in-kind fellowship partnership between the BSA and the American Trust for the British Library. The Pine Tree Foundation, meanwhile, sponsored a new fellowship in Hispanophone ephemera, an award that we hope will continue to build our membership of academic Latin Americanists and of bibliographers in Latin America. The Margaret B. Stillwell Legacy Society, finally, continues to hum along. We met in New York in the spring for a conversation with former President John Bidwell about his book, The Declaration in Script and Print, A Visual History of America's Founding Document. Get your copy, it's very timely for this year. Alvin Patrick hosted an online program honoring Katie Mitchell's Prose to the People, a celebration of Black bookstores. This fall, we gathered in Boston to hear Erica Cialelas discuss the history of Black librarianship, and members also received a copy of Erica's co-authored book on Belle DaCosta Green. So new partnerships are here and on the horizon. For the first time, the BSA has partnered with the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture for Bibliography Week. Barry Brown and her staff facilitated a guided tour of the center's centennial exhibition, and she offered this bookish tidbit for the audience. The copy of the Quran on which Mayor Zoran Mamdani swore his oath of office this month is Schomburg's personal copy, borrowed from the library. This partnership between the BSA and the Schomburg is one of the more concrete ways that the BSA has been able to enact the Council's Equity Action Plan, which Liz Ott, Jose Guerrero, and Magali Rabasa saw to its conclusion with a recommendation to hold the organization accountable, as Megan spoke to earlier, to the goals and benchmarks set out by it. On the horizon, Karen Wolf, chair of the Publications Committee, has a proposal in the works for a revitalized conception of the BSA's publishing program. And I leave it to my successor, knock on wood, to see this project through. She has laid out a viable next step for helping the research we fund become books that we can help bring into being. And I'm glad, considering this proposal, what will be one of the first orders of business for Council next month. So, thanks to all of you for your support as I was given the awesome responsibility of leading the BSA over the past 2 years. I could not have done this work without you, and it's been an honor to helm a learned society whose ways of thinking and learning are more valuable than ever because they remind us of our most human pursuit, the extension of who we are into media that go on to live unpredictable lives in the world. I now turn things over to Vice President Megan Pizer for her report.
Yakoke Kinohi. As I wrap up my second term as vice president and move on to new roles for work within the BSA, I want to emphasize what an honor it has been to be part of the leadership of this organization, working with our executive committee and the council and the chairs of our committees to realize your vision of BSA, a BSA for the great expanse of who practices bibliography, and what that looks like today is a privilege. And I want to thank Martin Antonetti for his service as our interim ED over the last several months. And I'm also excited to welcome Tracy as our new executive director. This year, we give great thanks to our ad hoc hiring committee led by Liz Ott, and with the labors of Martin Antonetti, John McQuillan, Patrick Olson, Jonathan Sinchin, and Barbara Shaler. They reviewed applications, organized and ran interviews, and ensured that we secured an exceptional director. This is perhaps one of the greatest volunteer efforts undertaken by BSA members in the past year. Many thanks to the council members and committee chairs who also gave their time to interviewing candidates. Your willingness to participate in imagining the future of BSA through leadership selection is perhaps one of the most valuable actions of community creation. The events and expansive community of BSA are made active by our committees. This year, Joan Friedman, who has steadfastly chaired our audit committee for many years, is stepping down, and she will be sorely missed. Jean-Marie Musto of the Liaison Committee and Charlotte Priddle, membership chair, will also be rotating off. Thank you to both of you. Jean-Marie and the Liaison Committee organized 2 new liaison relationships this year. Jessica Salinas is our first liaison to the American Printing History Association, and Kinohi will serve as our first liaison to the Society for Textual Scholarship. The Events Planning Committee, led by Clara Drummond, planned and hosted the amazing sessions this morning on bibliographical mysteries. They also organized the many, way too many to list here, tours and talks that you attended in person and virtually year-round as part of enacting your bibliographical scholarship and collective learning. Thank you to Clara and team for all of your labors. Membership and all biblio lovers also benefit from the events led by other organizations and institutions, but sponsored by BSA. Matthew Bouchard and the Event Sponsorship Committee oversaw the distribution of funds this year to support such events as the Building Books Lab Symposium at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, the Fresh Perspectives, Next Generations and Book Collecting event at Winterthur Library, the Trans Bibliography Symposium at Harvard University, and the in-person and virtual Queer Bibliography event at Newcastle University. If you have a bibliographical event in the coming year that you would like BSA to help sponsor, please email Matthew. John Garcia and the Fellowship Committee have also been working hard this year. They expanded the language for the Dorothy Porter Fellowship to encourage broad application of that opportunity and onboarded the new fellowship in Hispanophone ephemera. The committee also removed application obstacles and streamlined the fellowship process so that we can provide better, less burdensome opportunities to all the bibliographers who need them. Charlotte Priddle and the membership committee have been representing BSA at book fairs and creating and sending out all the great swag that you see out there to our liaisons to help recruit new members and celebrate our current ones. Shara Buchbaum and the Working Group for Fellows and Fellowships has created all of the great social media content that you see about our fabulous fellows and their accomplishments. And we are also, they're also essential in ensuring that our calls for fellowship applications are translated and available in Spanish. Most of the Bib site committee's labors may seem invisible, but as bibliographers, we all know that it is the quiet labor done while hunched over a book or attending to code or wrestling with a spreadsheet that constitutes the core of our work. Eric Inslee and his team have been keeping BibSite going, getting the word out about it as an essential repository for bibliographical resources, especially in a time when publishing the enumerative and detailed work in our field is less than desirable to most presses. Selfishly, I want to give a shout out to Eric, a special thank you for creating a landing page for my own bibliographical data set, providing me with a link for my manuscript proofs, and coordinating with my press for its co-release at the same time as my monograph out in March with Johns Hopkins University Press, because this is the future of digital bibliography in tandem with print publication, and I am so proud that BSA is on the forefront of that work. You've already heard from our amazing New Scholars Committee earlier today, and their work was visible as there as well. We are fortunate always to be learning from the new and future leaders of this field. Thank you to Agnieszka and team for keeping that program running. As Kinohi already shared, we also have new plans in the works from Karen and the Publications Committee, and you'll hear soon from the Investments Committee. In my final words to you as Vice President, I want to share my gratitude for BSA's willingness to evolve across decades of innovation and across the arc of my own bibliographic career. I came to BSA first as one of the earliest recipients of the BSA Rare Book School scholarships, and that experience helped me to see beyond my own institution that there were other people who also loved the weird things that I loved. As a new scholar, this is me as a new scholar, when Martin was president, I sat next to him at a dinner at the Grolier Club, and as a scared graduate student on a horrible job market, he chatted with me about the many ways that I could make a career as a bibliographer, and I think he also offered to get me a job. He's not here, so I can say that. BSA fellowships have funded my research, and working with David Gantz as the former editor of PBSA helped me gain the confidence to pitch my bibliographically grounded research to other publications and conferences and fields in my study. Reviewing an early draft of BSA's EAP during the pandemic showed me that this organization cares about the future of its membership, and serving on the e-board has thrown me in the path of so many brilliant thinkers that I now know that the way I understand books and material texts and myself as a volunteer for the work that I love will not ever be the same. So I want to thank all of you for continuing to show up for bibliography. It is a radical act of care to give to a community that you believe in and to a knowledge that thrives only through your nourishment. I hand us off now to Megan Constantino.
Hi, everyone. Just a note, I am going to be reading the Secretary's report as your Secretary, and I will also be reading our Treasurer's report on behalf of my colleague, Patrick Olson, who could not be here with us. So I'll just kind of run into those two seamlessly. I am pleased to report that our membership remains strong this year. As of September 30th, 2025, which marks the end of our fiscal year, we had a total of 603 members. This represents an increase of 55 members in comparison to the end of the previous fiscal year. So that's great news. The breakdown, which I did do, I think, this year. Sorry, it's not really looking too good on the screen, so I'll read those out. 128 emerging members, 307 partner members, 71 sustaining, 18 leadership, 8 advancing, 3 residents of Latin America, 61 lifetime members, and 7 honorary members. And thank you to all of you for maintaining your membership and for continuing to support BSA. I'm also sad to report a few losses this year. Maddie D'Angelo, owner of Better Read Than Dead Books, who left us on May 27th, and Roger Stoddard, BSA honorary member and president from 1996 to 2000, who left us on January 21st. So I'd like to offer 10 seconds, 10 minutes if you wish, please, 10 seconds of silence in their memory. Thank you. That is the Secretary's report. And now reading for Patrick. Okay. Okay. Following the tradition of my predecessor, Scott Clemens, I will share 3 slides to provide a snapshot of where our money comes from, how we use it, and where the organization's finances stand overall. And assuming most of you didn't come here today for the Treasurer's report, I will try to be brief. Come on. Our last fiscal year, October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, ran its course with just one surprise, Aaron's departure in June. Expenses and income otherwise hewed closely to the budget established at the start of the year. Here you can see where BSA gets its operating funds. We depend heavily on our endowment, which covers roughly half of our expenses. To preserve its purchasing power over time, we try to limit our annual endowment draw to 5% of its value. Last year's budgeted draw was a rather stiff 4.99%, though we did manage to finish the year at 4.86%. This year's budgeted draw is 4.84%, and ongoing economic uncertainty does make a case for nudging that number down further. We'd also be lost without donations from all of you, part of the contributions and grants slice. So please accept my sincere gratitude for remembering BSA in your giving. And while you're all here, I'd like to personally thank all of our annual meeting sponsors who make up a large chunk of these contributions. We can give them a round of applause. All of this supports the BSA programming you've come to expect. As you can see, more than 2/3 directly support that programming, and we spend just a sliver on fundraising efforts, as it should be. We want that blue slice to be substantially smaller than the contributions and grant slice in the previous chart, which means we're getting a good return on resources invested in fundraising. Altogether, BSA spent a hair more than $333,000 last year, or just $1,300 more than the year prior. The latest balance sheet shows BSA remains in good financial health. Despite a year of wild economic uncertainty, the stock market continued to perform well, and so did our endowment, currently valued at more than $4.7 million. I'm also happy to report something that we've mentioned, that the Peck Stackpole Foundation, which is winding down its activity, last month gave BSA $75,000 to establish a new endowed fellowship. Thanks are due to Aaron McGurl and Barbara Shaler for fostering that relationship over the years, and to Kanohi and Martin Antonetti for drafting the final endowment request. That was really great news. We have a realistic, responsible budget in place this year, the least you should expect from your treasurer. Looking ahead, I do expect next year's budget to be tighter. We're scheduled for a full audit rather than the less expensive annual review, And meanwhile, the income from the new Peck Stackpole endowment, an absolute win for the long term, will not replace the larger annual grants we've received from them in recent years. So that will make the numbers look a little different. And all this is to say, please keep BSA. If you have money to give, we couldn't do this without you. And finally, I'd like to thank the investments and audit committees for the critical contributions they make to BSA's fiscal management. And a very special thank you to Caitlin Kuchera. She handles more of the day-to-day finances than many realize, among many other things, and has been absolutely critical to the executive director transition period. If there's any time remaining in my 5-minute slot, it should probably be used to give her a round of applause. Where is she? And that is the end of the treasurer's report, and I will turn it next to James Blanco for Audit Committee.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking Joan Friedman for her exceptional dedication and her longtime service to the Bibliographical Society of America. As many of you know, the BSA performs a full audit of our financial statements every third year and engages in external auditors to review our financial statements during the interim periods. A financial review is less intensive and more cost-effective process than a full audit. Fiscal year 2025 was a review year. Our external auditors, Dermody, Burke, and Brown, led by partner Shannon Nelson, began our review shortly after the end of the September 30th fiscal year and wrapped up their work this month. As in years past, the process proceeded without difficulty or incident. There were no disagreements of a financial nature between the auditors and the Society. Based on their limited review, the auditors are not aware of the need for any material modifications to the Society's financial statements. As of September 30th, 2025, the Society's net assets were $4.8 million, up 8% from our net assets at the end of the prior fiscal year. Also, as in years past, the BSA exceeded the IRS threshold to be considered a public charity, entitling us to the tax benefits that such a designation brings. Approximately 66% of our funding came from public support, well in excess of the 33% threshold. The committee and staff are working with DB&B to finalize the financial statements and the draft Form 990. I'd like to thank my fellow members of the Audit Committee for their service, including Alan Klein, Elizabeth Ott, and David Richards. And likewise, I would also like to offer special thanks to Caitlin Kuchera for her invaluable work over the course of a successful fiscal year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Casper, and I had the pleasure of serving as chair of the St. Louis Mercantile Library Prize Committee this year. This is a prize for the outstanding book in American book history published in the last 3 years. The committee, a wonderful committee, consisted of Christopher Harder of the University of Cincinnati, Haven Hawley of Cornell, Elizabeth McHenry of NYU, and Caroline Wigginton of the University of Mississippi. We reviewed 14 submitted works, and we were impressed by their range and depth. We also want to say thank you to Caitlin for all of her administrative support organizing this entire process. Thank you, Caitlin. I am delighted to announce the honorable mention and a citation, and then the winner of this year's award. Honorable mention goes to Katie Mitchell for Prose to the People, a celebration of Black bookstores, published by Clarkson Potter. Prose to the People insists that bibliographers are everywhere, including in our local bookstores browsing the shelves. Katie Mitchell has collected oral histories, recruited first-person narratives, and compiled vivid photographs of people and primary documents to create a vibrant quilt of a resilient institution, the Black Bookstore. Cultural hubs of Black art and thought, these bookstores were our counter-publics, Mitchell writes. They were our brain trusts. They held our intellectual pasts, presents, and futures in a country denying our intellect's past, presence, and futures. Multivocal and brimming with life, truly nationwide in coverage, Prose to the People is a model of living bibliography, amplifying the voices of generations of booksellers, writers, and readers. This beautiful book, worthy of collection in its own right, gathers and enumerates Black-owned bookstores and reminds us that books are lively companions that collect community in addition to knowledge and story. So congratulations to Katie Mitchell as the honorable mention for the St. Louis Mercantile Library Prize. And the 2026 St. Louis Mercantile Library Prize is awarded to Laura E. Helton for Scattered and Fugitive Things, How Black Collectors Created Archives and Remade History, published by Columbia University Press. And I think Laura is here. Where are you? You're there? There you are. In Laura E. Helton's Scattered and Fugitive Things, How Black Collectors Created Archives and Remade History, an extraordinary range of Black collectors coalesces into a powerful narrative of meaning-making and institution building. Arguing that, and this is a quote, the generative and unruly practice of archiving became central to Black intellectual and social life in the early 20th century, Helton plumbs both the tactile and the social dimensions of collectors' accomplishment. In her words, they assembled files and scrapbooks, but they also assembled people, turning their collections into gathering spaces for the study of Black ideas. Helton's cast of characters is impressive and ingeniously assembled. Now recognized library giants Arturo Schomburg and Dorothy Porter, ephemeral scrapbook maker L.S. Alexander Gumby, and collector of World War II letters L.D. Reddick, and book ladies Virginia Lee in Roanoke, Virginia's Gainsborough Library, and Vivian D. Harsh of Chicago's George Cleveland Hall Branch Library. Grounded in deep archival research and beautifully written, Scattered and Fugitive Things makes a signal contribution not just to Black bibliography, but to bibliography writ large. Helton's exceptional study will inform and expand conversations in Native American and Indigenous studies, queer studies, religious studies, and beyond about how archives function as personal and communal sites of creativity, organization, and activism. Congratulations, Laura Helton, for this wonderful book. Delighted to present another. Well, there must be a way to open this box. Oh no! There is a way to open this box, and we're delighted to congratulate you on this award.
Try to jump up before it's my turn. Hi, I am Sarah Warner. I am the editor of PBSA. My colleague Jonathan Senshin, who is the associate editor of PBSA, who we'll chat in a second, and making up the third member of our team, managing editor Dylan Lewis, is here as well. PBSA is a deeply collaborative venture. We are advised by our board. The 2025 iteration of our board is on screen. We asked the board to help us make decisions, to help us identify peer reviews. Occasionally we ask them to do peer review themselves. We're really grateful for their work. But the collaborative nature of the journal doesn't end just with these formal people. The collaborative work of the journal also depends really on you all. You are our core readers. You are our core authors who send us submissions. We ask you to do peer review reports for us. And we also ask you to help us spread the word of the joy that is publishing in PBSA. I say that, it sounds a little bit weird, but we do, PBSA, I really want you to help people realize it's a great place to publish. The editors work really closely with you from submission on through to publication. I am deep in proofs as we speak at the moment. And we have lovely little postcards out on the table at the reception. You should pick them up and use them to hand them out at will at anybody who you think might be a bibliographer. So thank you all. Or maybe they're not a bibliographer yet, but they'll get the card and they'll be like, ooh, type, now I have to learn more. So thank you all for being part of PBSA and part of what has made us the journal that you receive quarterly. You should have just received the December issue, full of good things. My head is already in the June issue, so I'm trying to remember what December was. In the December issue, you will find last year's keynote, and you can make a note to yourself that you can look forward to this year's December issue for this year's keynote. We have, there's a really nice bibliographical, no, it's actually an article, not a note, about water babies, a really detailed look at the history of water babies, which I didn't know anything about because I don't do Victorian stuff, but this incredible children's literature. There's the piece about, Jonathan is really helpfully prompting me to remind me what's in it. Really interesting bibliographical note from a couple of fish studies guys who are book collectors, and so came across a copy of Renard's Poisson that had uncolored plates in it, and then do some really interesting bibliographical work on that.
With whom we had to cut off editorial correspondence for several months because they went to sea.
Yeah, it was very different experience than we usually have with our authors. I highly recommend doing that. There was also, I'm probably forgetting another article, but I want to call out one of the things that's in this issue is the result of last year's annual meeting when we had a roundtable conversation about bibliographical notes. What are they, what have they been, what can they do for us in the future? Those of us who spoke, our expanded comments are in there. We invited in a couple of additional scholars to really help us think through what I think are the tremendous rewards of bibliographical notes. So it's a rich issue. I hope you enjoy it. And just one quick note about, we always like to put up the covers because they're pretty, but also the covers this year have done a really good job of showing the wide range of material that we published in the journal. We really have this year managed to publish things from many that focus on many different continents, many different periods, many different types of material artifact. And that's what PBSA wants to do. That's really what PBSA should be doing.
And authors who are collectors, booksellers, scholars at various points in their careers, et cetera.
Yes, exactly, like a full range of whatever your relationship is to whatever the professional world is of bibliography, how you define that. Whether you're in it or you're out it or you're adjacent to it, PBSA is a strong place for those publications. I'm going to let Jonathan introduce next what's coming forward.
Great. So, happy birthday, PBSA. You turn 120 this year. Yeah, that was great. So looking forward to the March issue, which you'll receive in a timely way in your mailboxes and also digitally very soon. You will notice not only do these represent the range of scholarship that we do, but each year for the last 3 years, the covers have explored a theme, from substrate to type to bindings, and of course the theme also allows us to explore different approaches, fields, areas, the diversity of this society. This year, instead of exploring that theme from a sort of material basis, we've decided to explore something that's more thematic, which the theme for the Volume 120 is biblioclasm. Biblioclasm meaning the intentional and usually mass destruction of texts, often directed at people, groups, societies, often minority groups, and their languages, their cultures, their histories. Biblioclasm is not confined to a single time nor space. It is neither in history or present. It, like the other things that we explore, cuts across all different forms of expression, inscription, and material object. So, like every year, where you, at the annual meeting, find out what the March issue looks like and then discover this theme throughout the year, we here today show you the first issue of 120. These are 2 leaves that are in the National Library of Israel that are from the library of Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Sciences that were burned that were burned by the Nazis in, I believe, 1931, if I'm remembering the date correctly. Sorry if I don't have the date off the top of my head. There is an editor's letter that explains it all. But these leaves were picked up after that event, and they obviously represent attacks not only on books, but on forms of study, people who do that study, and the communities that they represent. And so we will explore this issue of biblioclasm through 4 covers, and I invite you to think about the role of the destruction and the destruction of books, texts, and the targeting of the people who make them and who are represented within them throughout volume 120. Within this volume, we also have exciting material for you to read. So preview of coming attractions, all in March. Yeah, this is the March issue. We have Talking Books, Paratextual Communication between Richard Wright, James Baldwin, and Edward P. Jones, which looks at, well, I won't explain it all, there's not time for that. Binding Rhythms, Materiality, Poetics, and Periodicity in Medieval Japanese Books. Leona Rostenberg and the Career of Robert Stevens, Messenger of the Press. Bridging Time and Space with Wormholes, Unbreaking a Codex from the collection of papal banker Tommaso Spinelli. Again, I want to emphasize the range of the kinds of bibliographical work that our journal is able to attract, put through peer review, edit, work with authors, develop, and see through to the journal and to represent our field. And I hope that you all can see your own work represented in PBSA, and will continue to read for us and send your material, and think capaciously about bibliography. Those, as lovely as those postcards are, don't keep them. Put them in the hands of people who you hear give good talks or ask interesting questions, and say, this journal is for you. So thank you very much.
I'm very aware that we are over time already, so but I have to emphasize my thanks for the search committee, for the executive director, Jonathan Sinchen, Patrick Olson, Barbara Shaler, who's also here today, and John McQuillan, and Martin Antonetti. Like Megan, when I met Martin, I was very early in my career, and he talked to me about how to be a bibliographer and offered to help me find a job. And that energy has carried over, but that search committee was just fantastic, and everyone committed a lot of time, but also the perspective of the history, the breadth, the depth of the membership was so well represented. Thank you also to the people who participated in the final interviews from council, committee chairs, and executive. Okay. Thank you so much to Kanohi and to Megan Pizer, both of whom will be leaving us in their roles. Kanohi is departing as our president, and Megan, after serving 2 consecutive terms as vice president, will be rotating off. So thank you so much, and I welcome our new slate. John McQuillan, Aaron Pratt, standing for president and vice president, and our council class of 2029, James Blanco, Katie Mitchell, Megan Pizer, and Catherine Ruffin. This slate has passed via electronic vote with 123 in favor, 3 opposed, and 2 abstentions. Please join me in welcoming our new elected officers and council. And I will welcome our new executive director, Tracy Floriani, to the stage. I'm very excited for this part, and yeah, thanks. All right.
Hello, nice to meet you. I don't know if this is a hazing that I'm the thing standing between you and the reception, but I would instead, obviously, I can't give you a report of the past 3 weeks because it would be like a spreadsheet of all the times that Caitlin had to get me 2-factor authentication to get into an account, or the times I had to forward emails to her because I couldn't answer them yet. But I did do some educated guessing and digging in the files, and it's been a great few weeks. I do want to, before I make some remarks, in the spirit of getting to know you and letting you get to know me a little bit, since I can't give you an annual report, report. I do want to thank Kinohi and Megan for their leadership, echoing Liz's comments. I want to thank Aaron for creating an amazing infrastructure that has really helped me figure out what to do next. So thank you, Aaron, for leaving. Not thank you for leaving. People just started applauding. Thank you for leaving such great resources in place. And I especially want to thank, I've had great meetings for the past few weeks, but I really want to thank Caitlin, and because I know she loves attention, and in absentia, Patrick Olson, who both did a lot of heavy lifting to help me get settled into my virtual office. Like, literally, Patrick was loading 50-pound boxes into the mail to get me the equipment I needed, so props to them. So yeah, just a quick few remarks so that you can get to know me a little bit. It was about a year ago, actually it was exactly a year ago this week, that I was sitting in a meeting room at the Library of Congress surrounded by the personal library of Woodrow Wilson, and I met Kinohi. We discovered that day that we had some bibliographic research interests in common and that our paths had briefly crossed before in professional circles. But if it weren't for that serendipitous meeting a year ago, I don't know if I would have learned that several months later there would be plans to search for a new executive director of BSA, or that I would have started on the path that brought me here today. So I'm very grateful and happy for that chance meeting among Woodrow Wilson's books. The steps on my path here go back even further than I realized at first. And so I'd like to share a little anecdote. You may have read in my official introduction, and as Kinohi mentioned, my current research and professional background are probably familiar to you, but I wanted to share an anecdote about the experience that first piqued my interest in the bibliographical. And so if this is a kind of modern example, so for those of you I've learned who are not into modern text, take a quick nap. I was an ignorant, wide-eyed 20-year-old English major many years ago at the University of Texas, taking a course on British modernism, in which we were studying, among other texts, Evelyn Waugh's 1945 novel, Brideshead Revisited. I was struggling, because remember, I was an ignorant 20-year-old. I was struggling to sort through the moral ambiguities of that story and figuring out whether the author himself felt aligned with or critical of one of the character's behaviors, or maybe he was himself ambivalent. Then, toward the end of that term, our professor took us to the Harry Ransom Center, a place that is dear to me now, where he had arranged for us to look at the typescripts and holographs of several of the authors we'd been reading. There was the typescript draft of Waugh's 1945 novel with his handwritten annotations and edits on it. And all along the margin of one of those morally ambiguous scenes was a doodle that he'd made, a biblical-looking serpent drawn in red ink. Seeing that, and seeing for the first time books as bibliographic process rather than just a finished marketed product, completely altered my understanding of the text. It was a revelation, and it helped me figure out what the author was up to. Unfortunately, as it happens, no one there then said, hey, come to a BSA meeting. It took me many years to come back to the Bibliographical. So I'm very excited that BSA is doing a lot of outreach and that there are ways to help young and new scholars find their way into bibliographical research. As I shared with the search committee during one of our conversations, one of the things I like most about this organization is how it brings together people from a variety of professional specialties and backgrounds around a shared interest in the dynamic topic of bibliography, and a group of people who want to share these stories about revelations based on a text. I love the energy that emerges out of both that shared interest and the very different perspectives that we bring to those conversations. We're here together today because, as many have said, we're book nerds. We love not only the stories within books, but also the stories of books themselves, the stories of their making and sometimes their remaking or unmaking, the mysteries about their lives as they pass from hand to hand, and the curiosities and concerns about their futures. We're all invested in maintaining this work and these texts for generations to come, in ways both literal and figurative. In just the 3 short weeks that I've been at this job as executive director, I have been struck by the generosity of the people in this organization. And I mean that in all senses of the word. Waiting for us to process in the new year, in my first week on the job, were incredibly generous end-of-year monetary donations and new sponsorships for this annual meeting. And I've had the pleasure of meeting already with various people who are incredibly generous with their time and energy, whether serving in leadership roles, helping to create our print publications and online resources, serving as volunteers to make events like this happen, or just bringing brilliant ideas to the table. So I very much look forward to having the time both today and throughout the coming year to meet many of our members and supporters at book fairs and at online events, and to get to know you all through fascinating conversations about books and ephemera, and learning from this vibrant community is something I look forward to most. It is truly humbling to be entrusted with shepherding the work of this organization, and I thank you for that trust.
Fine words to end the meeting. I hereby close the proceedings, pass the baton on to John McQuillan, and now it's time for a break and reception. Thank you all. Here's to the year ahead.